In this mini lecture, I'm going to introduce you to the field of physiology. Now, you're going to notice as we go through the lecture, or as we go through the semester, that a lot of the larger lectures that I would ordinarily give in class with several breaks to sort of give your brain a rest, I'm going to break these large lectures up into small mini lectures, like this one. This mini lecture is only 7 or 8 slides. But it will be, you will learn it in conjunction with Lecture 1B, which would be the Introduction to Chemistry. So the idea of breaking them down into smaller chunks makes it a little easier for you to digest, and it makes it a little less overwhelming because physiology is a very lecture-dense subject. And there are going to be times during the course when you're going to pull your hair out and think, I just can't do it. At that point in time, I'm just going to tell you to stop, take a breath, maybe take a little bit of a break, and come back to the lecture. Okay, you guys ready to get started? All right, we're going to move on and introduce physiology. What is physiology? Well, it's the study of how living things function. The challenge to physiology is that it's a very broad discipline. It can range from molecular physiology to organismal physiology. And we're going to touch on a little of all of this. We're going to start off actually this course with a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of organic chemistry. We'll take a little bit of molecular and cell physiology, and then we're going to move on to organismal physiology. But we're going to cover the gamut in this course. Human physiology is complex because the human organism is complex. We are made of multiple organ systems that must interact with one another. So physiologists tend to be interested in both function and the integration of these structures to basically create the whole organism we call the human body. Physiologists are very interested in how the parts of the body work together at various levels of organization. This slide lists the 11 major organ systems of the human body, and several of them we are going to look at. I'd say the majority of these we're going to look at through the semester. We won't be looking at the skeletal portion of musculoskeletal, but we'll be examining muscle physiology. You're going to learn in this course the physiology of skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscle, and how contraction in all three of those types of muscle tissue takes place. We'll take a look a little bit at the lymphatic system when we study the circulatory system and its physiology. We're going to do a lecture on immunity. We're going to have a lecture on gastrointestinal physiology, in other words, the physiology of the digestive system. We're going to take a look at the respiratory system, urinary physiology, reproductive physiology, the circulatory system, the nervous system, and the endocrine system, and take a look at their physiology. The only thing we probably won't do is going to be the integumentary system, because there really isn't a lot of skin physiology that you can learn. Now, you've learned these 11 major organ systems in anatomy. And when you take a look at the lectures throughout the semester, you're going to see that I'm going to have anatomy review slides. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over the anatomy, guys, because one of the prerequisites of this course is human anatomy. So I may introduce these slides and say, here's an anatomy review slide. Take a look at it at home. Take a look at it at home. You are going to come into this course with that anatomy knowledge. And if you have to go back to your previous notes to look up the anatomy of these systems, you're going to have to do that on your own time, because I'm going to assume you're going to know the anatomy so I can tell you how those parts work and integrate with one another. In studying physiology, we can use two basic approaches. One is called teleological. Now, telos means end or purpose. So the teleological approach to physiology emphasizes the purpose of a body's process or the purpose of a body system. It explains a function in terms of why that system is there to meet a bodily need. So it emphasizes the why. For example, why do I shiver? Well, I shiver because the contraction of muscles generates heat and it warms my body up. In the teleological approach to physiology, we're interested in what is the purpose of something and why does something happen. The other approach is called mechanistic. It emphasizes the underlying mechanism by which a particular body process occurs. It kind of focuses on cause and effect. It emphasizes the how. Why do I shiver? Well, I shiver because the detection of body temperature by sensory receptors leads to the activation of the somatic division of the nervous system, and this activation triggers involuntary contraction of skeletal muscles. The contraction of the skeletal muscles then generates heat, our body temperature comes back up, and when these sensory receptors detect the rise in body temperature, this system is shut down, or this mechanism is shut off. So in the mechanistic approach, we emphasize that what are the processes that are involved, and how does something work? It's important to realize that both of these approaches are used when you are studying physiology. You don't just study the teleological without the mechanistic, and you don't study the mechanistic without the teleological. By the way, this picture in this slide is something we're going to look at. It's a mechanism called G protein coupled receptor signaling. And it's actually a mechanism that hormones like epinephrine use to affect the function of a cell. But this is a nice little diagram that shows the mechanism of this signaling process. Physiology is closely related to anatomy because structure and function are closely related. Think of this phrase, form fits function. Our physiological mechanisms are made possible because of the structure and design of a body part. Some of these relationships are obvious between form and function, like the elbow joint. The structure of an elbow joint functioning as a hinge. This means physiologically it works to, act like a hinge, flex and extend. Some relationships are a little bit more subtle, like the interface between the air and the blood that flows over the alveoli in the lungs. All life on this planet can be organized into various levels. In biology, this is called the biological hierarchy. And I want you to think of it as a staircase, where the bottom step is the atomic level of organization. Each step in that staircase builds on the step below it. So you take a bunch of atoms to make molecules. Really big molecules are called macromolecules. Macromolecules can combine to form the subcellular organelles of the human cell. And these cells can then combine to form tissues, and these tissues can become organs. Organs can combine and integrate together to form an organ system like the circulatory system. And all of those 11 major organ systems then combine to form an organism. Now, what we're going to be looking at in the next mini lecture is going to be this. We're going to be looking at atoms. We're going to be looking at molecules. We're eventually going to move on to an organic chemistry lecture in which we're going to take a look at macromolecules. There's going to be a couple cell physiology lectures in this course where we look at organelles and how they combine to form cells. We won't be looking at tissues in terms of histology, but we will see how tissues like muscle tissue function and how nervous tissue function. And we're going to be looking at a lot of individual organs and how they combine to form organ systems. Again, we're going to look at 10 of those 11 major organ systems so that eventually we will get an idea of the human organism as a whole. So that's the end of the first mini lecture. You're going to skip on over now to lecture 1B, which is going to be the introduction to chemistry. Then we're going to move on to the next subsequent lectures. But this first lecture is kind of a little bit of a review of previous courses that you've taken. So if you're feeling like, oh, wait a minute here, I've heard this before, it's because you have heard this before. See you at lecture 1B, guys.